Yes, our coverage continues tonight on the events at Capitol Hill where protests turned into riots and the U.S. Capitol actually went into lockdown. Joining us tonight to break down the impacts of those riots is Jeremy Adams. He's a political analyst and professor at CSUB. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for joining us once again this evening. Let's start off by talking about what we saw today at the Capitol. Could any protesters or even political officials face charges of sedition?
Well, sedition is a pretty serious charge. It carries with it 20 years. In 1937, people were convicted of sedition. In 2010, and of course, there is a historical precedent for this. People who know their history remember 1798 Alien and Sedition Acts. We know in 1918 there was the Sedition Act. So sedition is definitely a part of America's political culture and its legal system. That being said, Alex, I would be very surprised if anybody was actually charged with sedition. Most seditious activity requires a certain level of organization. It requires a certain level of planning. It requires that certain people be armed with an intention to overthrow the government. And to be perfectly frank with you, when you look at the video of what we saw today, it seemed more like an out-of-control mob. It seemed more like a bunch of infantile stupidity than an overthrow of the federal government. So I would be surprised to see any sedition charges.
And another question for you. How will history remember what we're watching unfold at the U.S. Capitol today?
That's the $50,000 question, isn't it, Alex? And in fact, the reason I accepted your invitation to come on here this evening is because as a civics educator, my heart was absolutely broken today. I believe that what happened today happened largely when Americans do not understand what makes them Americans. Remember, when you look on all of our money, our old national motto, e pluribus unum, out of many we are one. And I think what's happened today is we will look back at today and say Americans forgot who they are. We forgot that what unites us is stronger than anything that what divides us. You know, Thomas Jefferson once said that every difference of opinion is not necessarily a difference of principle, and yet today you saw just the opposite. People often talk about the Constitution like it's only a noun, that it's a piece of parchment, but don't forget the Constitution is actually a verb as well. It constitutes a nation. It binds us. And if we don't understand the norms and the values and the principles that make Americans Americans, regardless of their background, their class, their skin color, their religion, if we forget the fact that we all are supposed to pledge allegiance to a republic with certain values and certain procedures, then this is the kind of thing that can happen. And I think that's how history will remember it, is we have to get serious about remembering who we are as Americans.
And Jeremy, just one last question here. I know in our 6 o'clock hour, we talked about what the next 14, 15 days are going to look like. And one thing that you mentioned that I want to go back on is that you said that Trump may even try to pardon himself. So is this actually a reality? Could he actually do this?
Well, if there's one thing that Donald Trump is known for not caring about, that's its precedent. Who knows what he might try in the next 14 days? This is actually not a new question. Back in the mid-1970s, one of Nixon's lawyers suggested to him that he could, in fact, pardon himself. Now, the Justice Department looked at it and said, there's no way, because it would violate the ultimate aim of the pardoning power, which is the ability to check the federal judiciary. And if you actually extend it, Alex, to a certain degree, if a president could pardon himself, that frankly means that he could commit as many federal crimes as he wanted to for 4 years until the very last day of his office. So the spirit of it, I think, is clearly that he can't pardon himself, but I could very easily see him trying to do it. I could very easily see it end up in the Supreme Court. But remember, presidents have been making controversial pardons for a long time. Thomas Jefferson pardoned people who were convicted under the Sedition Act of 1798, which I mentioned just a minute ago. Gerald Ford pardoned all kinds of people who resisted the draft to go to Vietnam. Remember, in 2000, Bill Clinton pardoned Mark Rich. And what happens every single time is once a president has issued a pardon, especially at the end of their term, there's really not much you can do because by that time, they're out of office.
All right, Jeremy, thank you so much. Of course, as always, we really appreciate your time. We hope you're staying warm out there as well. Jessica, of course, we're going to go ahead and send things back over to you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes, thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.